Black delivery man helps elderly stranger with a flat tire. What follows changes his life forever. It was just another day for Marcus, a delivery man who worked for a small local company. His mornings usually started early, long before the sun had fully risen. He'd drive his truck through the sleepy streets, making his rounds as part of the city's quiet hum. The work wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, and Marcus had grown used to it. He had to, especially because it was the only job he could find after years of trying to break into a better position. As a black man, Marcus sometimes felt that life had thrown more obstacles his way than others, but he didn't dwell on it. He focused on the road, on the next package, and the next delivery. It wasn't the dream he had once imagined as a young man, but it paid the bills. He lived in a small apartment in a quiet part of town, far from the bright lights of the city center. The rent was cheap, and although his car had seen better days, it was enough to get him through his work. That morning, the sun was already high in the sky by the time Marcus reached his next stop. He had just dropped off a package at a local store when he noticed a car parked on the side of the road. The driver's side door was open, and a woman was standing next to the vehicle, clearly distressed. At first, Marcus thought she might need help with directions or something minor, but as he drove closer, he saw that the car's tire was flat. The woman was older, her silver hair slightly tousled by the wind. She was struggling with a heavy-looking tire iron, her face etched with frustration. The car was a dusty old sedan, clearly showing signs of age, but it didn't seem like it had been abandoned. Marcus could tell she was trying her best to fix the tire on her own, but the task seemed to be more than she could handle. She appeared a bit too frail for the job. For a moment, Marcus thought about driving on. After all, he had a tight schedule. But as he looked at the elderly woman, something stopped him. Maybe it was her determination, or maybe it was the memory of his own grandmother, who had always taught him to help others when they needed it. Whatever the reason, Marcus knew he couldn't just drive by. He slowed down, rolled down his window, and called out to her. "Hey, do you need some help?" The woman turned toward him, her face lighting up with a mix of surprise and relief. "Oh, would you mind?" she said, her voice shaking just a little. "I've been out here for almost an hour, and I'm not sure what to do." Without hesitation, Marcus parked his truck and walked over to her. "Don't worry about it, ma'am," he said, offering her a reassuring smile. "I'll get it done for you." She looked at him with a grateful expression. "Thank you so much. I just couldn't manage it on my own. I'm not as strong as I used to be." "No problem," Marcus replied. "I'm happy to help." The woman introduced herself as Mrs. Brooks, and as Marcus began working on the car, she told him that she hadn't had much company lately. Her family lived far away, and though she had neighbors, most of them were too busy with their own lives to offer any assistance. She had been married once many years ago, but her husband had passed away a long time ago. She often found herself alone, which made simple tasks like changing a tire feel more challenging. As Marcus worked, he listened to her talk. Mrs. Brooks wasn't complaining. She spoke with a kind, gentle voice, as though she was simply stating the facts of her life. There was no bitterness in her words, just a quiet acceptance. She mentioned that she had lived in the neighborhood for decades and had seen it change over the years, though she remained fond of the old places. Marcus worked quickly and efficiently, removing the flat tire and replacing it with the spare. It was a simple task, but one that would have been difficult for someone who didn't know their way around a car. As he finished tightening the lug nuts, he realized how good it felt to help someone without expecting anything in return. It wasn't something that happened often in his life. When the tire was finally fixed, Marcus stood up, wiping his hands on a rag. Mrs. Brooks looked at him with a warm smile. "I can't thank you enough," she said, her eyes bright. "You've saved me." "I don't know what I would have done without you." Marcus felt a little embarrassed by her gratitude. It wasn't that big of a deal, but it meant something to her, and that was enough. He smiled back. "It was nothing, really. I'm just glad I could help." Mrs. Brooks hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "I know you must have things to do, but if you ever find yourself with a little time, I'd love to offer you something to drink. A cup of tea, perhaps?" Marcus shook his head. "Thank you, but I really have to get back to work." "I appreciate the offer, though." She nodded, understanding. "Of course. Well, thank you again. You're a kind man." Marcus smiled once more, gave her a wave, and walked back to his truck. As he climbed in and started the engine, he couldn't help but think about the brief interaction. It wasn't much, but it was a reminder of how small acts of kindness could make a difference in someone's day. He drove away, his mind still on the elderly woman, wondering if she would be okay. But he had to keep moving. The day wasn't going to wait for him. As he continued his deliveries, he thought about his own life, the struggles he faced, and how sometimes he felt invisible, like a small part of a bigger machine. But today, for the first time in a long time, Marcus felt like he had made a difference to someone, no matter how small the gesture. The day passed by, and he finished his route. But as the sun began to set, he found himself reflecting on the encounter with Mrs. Brooks. Little did he know, this small act of kindness would set off a chain of events that would change his life in ways he never expected. A few days passed, and life went back to its normal rhythm for Marcus. He resumed his routine of deliveries, the daily grind that he had come to accept. The busy streets, the endless deliveries, the endless hours, it was all part of the job. But in the back of his mind, something about his brief encounter with Mrs. Brooks lingered. He couldn't stop thinking about how grateful she had been. It wasn't the kind of gratitude he was used to receiving. Usually, people would simply thank him for his hard work and hand over a tip. But Mrs. Brooks had given him something else, an emotional connection. It was clear she had no one else to turn to, no one to help with the small tasks that life threw her way. In a way, it made Marcus feel like he had done something truly meaningful, even though it was such a small thing. On the third day after he had fixed her tire, Marcus was out on his route again, making deliveries. He was at a stoplight when his phone rang. It was an unknown number, but something told him he should answer. He pressed the button on the steering wheel, accepting the call. "Hello," he said, curious but cautious. "Hello, is this Marcus?" the voice on the other end asked. It was Mrs. Brooks. "Yes, this is Marcus. How can I help you?" he replied, surprised to hear from her again. "Oh, it's Mrs. Brooks." "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important," she said. "I was wondering if you might have a little time to meet with me. I would like to thank you again for helping me the other day. I know you were busy, but I've been thinking about you, and I just wanted to show my appreciation properly." Marcus was taken aback. He had no idea what she meant by showing her appreciation properly, but he didn't want to turn her down. She had been so kind and sincere during their brief conversation, and he felt as though she had become a friend of sorts, even if they didn't know each other very well. "Oh, you really don't have to do that," Marcus replied, not wanting to offend her. "I was happy to help." "It wasn't anything big," Mrs. Brooks chuckled softly. "I know, dear, but you see, sometimes kindness should be rewarded. I believe that good things should be paid forward. How about we meet at the little cafe down the street from where I live? I'll be there around 2 p.m. if you're free." Marcus thought for a moment. He had some time between deliveries, so why not? He hadn't seen her since the day he helped her with the flat tire, and he figured it wouldn't hurt to stop by. "All right, I can make it at 2, Marcus said, agreeing to the meeting. "I'll see you there." When the day arrived, Marcus found himself looking forward to the meeting, although he couldn't quite put his finger on why. He wasn't used to people going out of their way to show gratitude, and the fact that Mrs. Brooks wanted to meet him face to face made him feel both nervous and honored. At 2 p.m., Marcus parked his truck in front of the cafe, a small, cozy spot nestled on the corner of a quiet street. He could see Mrs. Brooks through the large windows, sitting at a table by the window, wearing a soft smile and a light blue cardigan. She looked up as he walked inside, and her face lit up when she saw him. "Marcus, I'm so glad you could make it," she said warmly, standing up to greet him. He smiled back, trying to hide his nerves. "Of course, Mrs. Brooks, thanks for inviting me." As he sat down at the table, the cafe was quiet, the soft clinking of cups and low chatter filling the background. Mrs. Brooks didn't waste any time. She took a deep breath, as though gathering her thoughts, and then placed a small envelope on the table in front of Marcus. "I know you probably think I'm crazy for doing this," she began, "but I've been thinking about how much you helped me and how kind you were. People like you, Marcus, people who take the time to help others without expecting anything in return, they deserve something special. So please take this." Marcus was stunned. He looked down at the envelope, unsure of what was inside. "Mrs. Brooks, I told you it really wasn't a big deal. You don't need to give me anything." But Mrs. Brooks shook her head gently, her eyes serious. "I insist, dear. I know it may be hard for you to accept, but you've done more for me than anyone else has in a long time. This is my way of saying thank you. It's not just for fixing my tire, it's for being a good person. We need more good people in the world. Still unsure, Marcus slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a check. His eyes widened in disbelief as he read the amount written on it. It was far more money than he had ever expected or imagined. "Mrs. Brooks, this is way too much," he said, shaking his head. "I can't accept this. It's far more than I would ever want or need." But Mrs. Brooks wouldn't hear it. "You deserve it, Marcus. You've got the heart of someone who would do anything to help, and I know this will go towards something good in your life. Maybe it will help you with a dream, or maybe it will give you the chance to improve your life in ways you didn't think were possible. Take it." Marcus felt a knot form in his stomach. This wasn't just money. It was a gift, a chance. He had always worked hard trying to make ends meet, but he'd never had the resources to take the next step in his life. This money, it was more than just an unexpected blessing. It was a lifeline. I don't know what to say," Marcus stammered. "This is just too much, Mrs. Brooks smiled gently. "You don't need to say anything, dear. Just promise me one thing, use it wisely, and don't be afraid to take a chance on yourself." Marcus couldn't bring himself to argue anymore. He felt a mix of emotions, gratitude, disbelief, and a bit of fear, too. How could he ever repay such kindness? But he knew one thing for sure. Mrs. Brooks was right. He couldn't let this opportunity slip by. The conversation turned lighter after that, with Mrs. Brooks asking about his work and his life. Marcus shared bits and pieces, and she listened intently, offering words of encouragement and wisdom along the way. She made him feel like he wasn't just a delivery man, he was someone worthy of more. As he left the cafe that afternoon, Marcus tucked the check into his jacket pocket, his mind racing. It wasn't just about the money. It was the belief Mrs. Brooks had shown in him. It was the recognition that he was capable of more than just delivering packages. Walking to his truck, Marcus felt the weight of the gift, and he knew that whatever he did next, it had to count. This was his chance to make something of himself. The simple act of helping an elderly woman with a flat tire had set something much bigger into motion, something that could change his life forever. The next few days felt different for Marcus. After meeting Mrs. Brooks and receiving her generous gift, he couldn't stop thinking about what she had said to him. "Use it wisely, and don't be afraid to take a chance on yourself." The words echoed in his mind, and he found himself questioning everything. Could he really do something more with his life? Was it time to take a step out of his comfort zone? Normally, Marcus wouldn't entertain such thoughts. He was used to just getting by. He had always worked hard, but he had never imagined that something beyond his current job could ever be in reach. But this money, this unexpected gift, was a sign that maybe it was time to dream a little bigger. He didn't know exactly what that meant, but the idea of change was beginning to feel less scary. Over the next couple of days, Marcus found himself grappling with the decision. He thought about how long he had been stuck in the same routine, driving the delivery truck, making the same stops, talking to the same people. There was comfort in the routine, but he knew he wasn't growing. Mrs. Brooks had reminded him that there was more to life than just going through the motions. She had seen something in him that he hadn't seen in himself for a long time. One evening, after a long day of deliveries, Marcus sat in his small apartment, looking at the check again. It was a substantial amount of money, more than he had ever seen in his life. It was enough to change things. He could invest in something. He could go back to school. He could take a risk. But there was doubt, too. What if it didn't work out? What if he failed? He was comfortable with the life he had, even if it wasn't the life he had dreamed of. Taking the money, using it for something bigger, was that really the right choice? His phone buzzed, breaking his chain of thought. It was a message from Mrs. Brooks. "How are you doing, Marcus? I've been thinking about our conversation. I know it's a big decision, but don't let fear hold you back. You've got this." Marcus stared at the screen for a moment, reading the words over and over again. It was as if she knew exactly what he was feeling. How could someone he barely knew understand him so well? It felt like she was pushing him not to take the money for granted, but to use it for something that would change his life. He typed a quick response. "Thanks, Mrs. Brooks. I'm thinking about it." After a few moments, another message came through. "Take your time, but don't take too long. Life waits for no one." The words hit him harder than he expected. Marcus sat back in his chair, letting the weight of the decision settle over him. Life waits for no one. He couldn't deny that. The next morning, Marcus called his boss. He had been thinking about it for hours, and he knew he had to at least try. He couldn't keep going through life on autopilot, doing the same thing day in and day out. He wasn't getting any younger, and the chance to make something more of himself was slipping away. "Hey, Mr. Harris," Marcus said, his voice a little shaky. "I wanted to talk to you about my position." Mr. Harris, his boss, was a gruff man, but he was fair. He had known Marcus for years and respected his work ethic. "Sure, Marcus, what's on your mind?" "I've been thinking about taking some time off," Marcus said, the words feeling heavy. "I'm going to look into going back to school, maybe get into truck driving or something with better pay and benefits. I've got an opportunity to make a change." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Finally, Mr. Harris spoke. "That's a big move, Marcus. You've always been reliable, and I hate to see you go. But if you think it's the right thing for you, I won't stand in your way. Just let me know when you're ready to make the transition." "Thanks, Mr. Harris," Marcus replied, feeling a mixture of relief and uncertainty. "I'll keep you updated." Hanging up the phone, Marcus felt his heart race. He had just taken the first step toward change. He didn't know what the future would hold, but he knew that doing nothing wasn't an option anymore. He had to move forward, even if it meant leaving behind what he knew. The next day, Marcus took a deep breath and went to the local community college. He had always been interested in logistics, and he figured it might be a good place to start. After some paperwork and a brief chat with an advisor, he signed up for a truck driving course. The idea of being on the road, driving long distances, and earning a better salary was exciting, but it also felt like a leap into the unknown. That evening, he sat in his apartment, looking at the confirmation email from the college. The thought of school, of doing something different, was both thrilling and terrifying. He knew it would be hard. The course would take months, and he would have to balance his studies with part-time work. It wouldn't be easy, but it was his choice. It was his chance to build a better life. A few days later, Marcus called Mrs. Brooks to let her know what he had decided. "Mrs. Brooks," he said, trying to keep his voice steady, "I did it. I enrolled in the truck driving program. I'm going to take this chance." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and then Mrs. Brooks' voice, warm and full of pride, came through. "I'm so proud of you, Marcus. You've got the courage to make a change, and that's the first step. I knew you could do it." He smiled, feeling the weight of the decision lift off his shoulders. "Thank you. Your words really helped me get here." "You're welcome, dear. I'll be rooting for you every step of the way." Marcus felt a sense of gratitude he couldn't put into words. Mrs. Brooks had given him the encouragement he needed, not just through her financial gift, but through her belief in him. It wasn't just about the money. It was about someone else seeing his potential when he couldn't see it himself. From that moment on, Marcus knew that he wasn't just changing his job, he was changing his life. It wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long time, he was excited for what the future could hold. He wasn't sure where this path would lead, but he knew he had made the right choice. The weeks that followed felt like a whirlwind. Marcus had taken the plunge into his new path, enrolling in the truck driving program at the local community college. His first day of class was a blur of new faces, a mix of excitement and nervousness filling the air. There were people of all ages, some much older than Marcus, some younger, all looking for the same thing, a chance at something better. At first, Marcus wasn't sure what to expect. He had always been the kind of person who kept his head down, doing his job with little fanfare. Now he was in a classroom, learning new things every day, and for the first time in a long while, he felt like he was working towards something that mattered. The days in the classroom were long. The instructor, a no-nonsense woman named Ms. Thompson, was tough but fair. She didn't sugarcoat anything. "This isn't a job for everyone," she would say, her voice stern. "Driving trucks can be lonely, it can be exhausting, and it can be dangerous. But if you're willing to put in the work, there's a good future waiting for you." Marcus listened carefully. He knew this wasn't going to be easy. The thought of being away from home for long stretches of time, the exhaustion of long hours on the road, all of it weighed on him. But he was determined. Mrs. Brooks had believed in him, and he couldn't let her down. Each day, Marcus absorbed everything he could. He learned how to inspect a truck, how to handle it in difficult weather conditions, how to communicate with dispatch, and most importantly, how to drive it safely. There were days when he felt overwhelmed, when the sheer volume of information seemed impossible to keep up with. But every time he wanted to give up, he thought of Mrs. Brooks and her encouraging words. "Don't be afraid to take a chance on yourself." It was this thought that kept him going. He had made the decision to change his life, and he was going to see it through. In the evenings, after class, Marcus would sit at his kitchen table with the course materials, going over notes and practicing on his simulator. There were times when his mind wandered, and he thought about how his life used to be, how he used to feel stuck delivering packages day in and day out. But now everything was different. His mind was focused on a new goal. One afternoon, about a month into the course, Marcus took the first of many driving tests. It was a nerve-wracking experience. The truck was huge, and as he sat behind the wheel, he could feel the weight of it, both literally and figuratively. He was alone on the road, navigating tight turns, busy intersections, and the ever-changing weather. Every move had to be calculated. One wrong step could mean disaster. He remembered all the training he had received and took a deep breath. His hands were steady as he gripped the wheel, and he focused on the road ahead. The test took hours, and by the time it was over, Marcus was exhausted. But there was a feeling of accomplishment that filled him as he parked the truck and shut off the engine. When the instructor called him over to discuss his performance, Marcus held his breath, hoping for the best. "You did well," Ms. Thompson said, offering a rare smile. "You handled the truck with confidence. You've got potential." Relief washed over Marcus, and he couldn't help but smile. It was just one test, but it felt like a huge victory. He had done it. He had passed the first major hurdle on the way to a better future. As the weeks went by, Marcus continued to progress. His confidence grew with each lesson, and he began to believe that this new career was not just a dream. It was becoming a reality. His classmates, some of whom had been driving trucks for years, started to notice his dedication. They offered tips and advice, and Marcus took it all in, eager to learn from anyone who had more experience than him. One evening after class, Marcus was sitting in his truck, going over his notes one last time before heading home. It had been a particularly long day, and his body ached from all the practice behind the wheel. Just as he was about to start the engine, his phone buzzed. It was a text message from Mrs. Brooks. "I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing, Marcus. I've been thinking about you and hoping everything is going well. Remember, no matter how hard it gets, you're doing something amazing." Marcus smiled as he read the message. Her words had become a source of strength for him. It was strange how someone he barely knew had become such an important part of his journey. Her kindness and belief in him had pushed him to keep going when it felt like everything was against him. He typed a quick reply. "Thanks, Mrs. Brooks. It's been tough, but I'm doing it. I'm learning a lot and I'm not giving up." Her reply came almost immediately. "That's what I like to hear. Keep pushing forward, Marcus. I'm so proud of you." The warmth in her words made Marcus feel like he wasn't alone in this. He was taking a huge step in his life, but he wasn't doing it alone. Mrs. Brooks had given him more than just money. She had given him confidence. The next few weeks flew by, and before Marcus knew it, it was time for the final exam. This was it, the moment he had been working toward for so long. He was nervous, more nervous than he had ever been, but he was also determined. He had come this far, and there was no way he was going to back out now. On the day of the test, Marcus woke up early, as he always did. He dressed in his best clothes, making sure everything was in order. He had already packed his bag with snacks and water, knowing he would be on the road for a long time. As he drove to the testing center, his nerves kicked into high gear, but he kept reminding himself of the one thing that had gotten him through everything so far. Don't be afraid to take a chance on yourself. The exam was tough. It tested everything Marcus had learned in the past few months. There were hours of driving, backing up, maneuvering through tight spaces, and following complicated instructions. He felt every moment of the test weighing on him. There were a few close calls, moments when he wasn't sure if he was doing things right. But he kept his focus and pushed through. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Marcus parked the truck and turned off the engine. He looked over at the instructor, who was scribbling notes on a clipboard. "Well," the instructor said after a long pause, "you passed. Congratulations, Marcus." A wave of relief and joy washed over him. He had done it. After all the hard work, the long hours, the doubts, and the struggles, he had passed the test. This was the moment he had been waiting for, and it was finally here. As he walked out of the testing center, Marcus pulled out his phone and immediately texted Mrs. Brooks. "I did it. I passed. I'm officially a truck driver." Her reply came quickly. "I knew you could do it. I'm so proud of you. You've worked so hard and it's all paying off. This is just the beginning." Marcus couldn't help but smile as he read her message. It was true. This was just the beginning of something new, something he had worked for, and something that was going to change his life forever. Marcus couldn't help but smile as he drove home from the testing center that day. The weight of the past few months seemed to lift from his shoulders, and for the first time in a long time he felt a sense of accomplishment. He had done it. He had passed the driving test and was officially a truck driver. The new chapter in his life had begun. But even as the excitement bubbled inside him, Marcus knew that this was just the beginning. He had spent so much time thinking about the process, the hard work, and the challenges ahead, but he hadn't fully grasped what this achievement meant for his future. He wasn't just starting a new job, he was beginning a journey toward a life he had never imagined for himself, a life that could provide more than just a paycheck. He was now in control of his future, and that was something he had never felt before. The days that followed were a whirlwind of new opportunities and experiences. Marcus began to apply for jobs with various logistics companies. He felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as he submitted applications, not knowing what to expect. It was strange, after so many years of just accepting whatever came his way, to suddenly be in a position where he could choose the next step in his career. Several weeks later, Marcus received a call from a company called Roadway Logistics. They had seen his application and were impressed by his qualifications. They offered him an interview the following week. Marcus was ecstatic. This could be it, the break he had been waiting for. The night before the interview, Marcus hardly slept. He was nervous but also determined. He had worked hard to get to this point, and he knew this was his chance to prove that he was capable of more than just delivering packages. He was ready to step into a new world, one that he had only dreamed of before. The next morning, Marcus put on his best outfit, a crisp button-down shirt and his only tie, and drove to the company's headquarters. The building was large and modern, and as he walked through the doors, he felt a sense of awe. This was the kind of place where he could see himself working, surrounded by people who shared his drive and ambition. The interview was intense but fair. The hiring manager, a middle-aged man named Mr. Anderson, asked Marcus a series of questions about his training, his experience, and why he wanted to work for Roadway Logistics. Marcus answered each question with confidence, drawing on the lessons he had learned during his time at the community college. He talked about his dedication to safety, his passion for driving, and his desire to be part of a team that valued hard work. At the end of the interview, Mr. Anderson smiled and extended his hand. "You've got the job, Marcus. Welcome to Roadway Logistics. We're excited to have you on board." Marcus could hardly believe what he was hearing. His heart raced as he shook Mr. Anderson's hand. This was it, the moment he had worked so hard for. The job wasn't just a paycheck. It was a step toward the future he had always wanted. A future filled with opportunities, stability, and the chance to do something meaningful with his life. Over the next few weeks, Marcus completed the necessary paperwork, attended orientation, and was assigned his first route. He was officially a part of the team at Roadway Logistics. The work was challenging, but Marcus found that he enjoyed it more than he had expected. He loved being on the road, driving through different cities, seeing new places, and meeting new people along the way. The work was hard, but it was rewarding. He had found something he was passionate about, something that gave him purpose. Despite the long hours and the time away from home, Marcus felt a sense of pride in his work. He was earning a good salary, but more than that, he was building something for himself. This job wasn't just a means to an end. It was a chance for Marcus to take control of his life, to create the future he had always dreamed of. And as he spent more time on the road, he found himself reflecting on how far he had come. Just a few months ago, he had been stuck in a dead-end job, feeling invisible and uncertain about his future. Now he was a truck driver for a respected logistics company with a bright future ahead of him. The journey had been long and difficult, but every step had been worth it. One afternoon, as he was driving through a small town, Marcus received a text from Mrs. Brooks. He smiled as he read her message. "I just wanted to check in, Marcus. I'm so proud of you. I knew you could do it. Keep pushing forward. You're going to do amazing things." He felt a lump form in his throat as he typed his reply. "Thank you, Mrs. Brooks. I couldn't have done it without your belief in me. You've changed my life." Her reply came quickly. "No, Marcus, you did this. I just gave you a little push. You're the one who made it happen. Keep going." Tears welled up in his eyes as he drove. He thought back to the day he had helped her with the flat tire, how she had given him a chance when he had almost given up on himself. It was because of her kindness, her belief in him, that he had found the courage to change his life. Marcus was more determined than ever to keep moving forward. His career was just beginning, and he had big plans for the future. But more than that, he had a new sense of purpose. He wasn't just working to survive anymore, he was working to build a life that he could be proud of. As he drove through the countryside, the wind in his hair and the open road stretching out before him, Marcus thought about all the people who had come into his life, especially Mrs. Brooks. She had taught him that sometimes the smallest act of kindness could change everything. She had shown him that he was capable of more than he had ever believed. And now Marcus was ready to pay it forward. One day he would be the one to help someone in need, just as she had helped him. He would do it without hesitation, without expecting anything in return, because he understood now that the simple acts of kindness we give to others can change not only their lives, but our own as well. It had been a year since Marcus had started his new job as a truck driver with roadway logistics, and his life was already looking completely different. He had made significant strides in his career, and more importantly, he had built a sense of pride in his work that he had never felt before. Every time he hit the road, he saw it not just as a job, but as an opportunity to grow and prove to himself that he had made the right choice. The days were long, and the work was tiring, but Marcus had learned to enjoy the rhythm of the road. There was something peaceful about the endless highways and the soft hum of the engine beneath him. Driving gave him time to think, time to reflect on how far he had come. He thought about all the struggles he had faced, the moments when he had almost given up, and how one small act of kindness had set him on this new path. Every mile he drove felt like a reminder that he had changed his life, that he was in control of his future now. One afternoon, while he was on his way to make a delivery, Marcus noticed a car pulled over on the side of the road. As he got closer, he saw an elderly man standing next to his vehicle, clearly struggling with a flat tire. Marcus immediately slowed down, recognizing the situation. Without hesitation, he pulled over, parking his truck behind the car. The elderly man looked up, surprised to see Marcus approaching. "Can I help you with that?" Marcus asked, his voice warm and friendly. The man looked relieved but hesitant. "I don't want to bother you, young man. I can handle it," he said, clearly not wanting to be a burden. Marcus smiled and shook his head. "It's no trouble at all. Let me give you a hand." As he worked on the tire, the man introduced himself as Mr. Thompson. He was an older gentleman, and like Mrs. Brooks, he had that same sense of independence, a quiet pride in handling things on his own. They talked as Marcus changed the tire, just like he had with Mrs. Brooks all those months ago. The conversation was simple, but it was clear that the man appreciated the help. Marcus didn't do it for any reward, he just saw someone in need, and helping them had become second nature by now. Once the tire was fixed, Mr. Thompson offered Marcus some money, but as always, Marcus refused. "No need for that," he said, smiling. "I'm just happy to help." Mr. Thompson insisted, but Marcus was firm. "It's just something I do now," he said. "I believe in paying it forward." As Marcus got back into his truck, ready to finish his delivery, he couldn't help but think of Mrs. Brooks. That simple moment, changing a flat tire, helping a stranger, was exactly what she had done for him. She had given him a chance when he had needed it most, and now he was doing the same for others. Driving down the road, Marcus felt a sense of pride wash over him. He wasn't just driving to make a living, he was building a legacy, one act of kindness at a time. The lessons that Mrs. Brooks had taught him about helping others, about believing in himself, were becoming a part of who he was. It wasn't just about his job or the money. It was about the kind of person he was becoming. The weeks turned into months, and Marcus's confidence continued to grow. His job had become more than just a source of income. It had become a source of fulfillment. He was respected at his company, and his supervisors noticed his dedication. But the true reward came not from his job, but from the relationships he built along the way, the people he helped, and the small gestures of kindness he offered to others. One evening, as Marcus was finishing a late shift and driving back to his apartment, he received a call from an unknown number. It was Mrs. Brooks. "Marcus," she said, her voice filled with excitement. "I've been meaning to call you. I've got some wonderful news. My daughter is coming to visit me next week, and she's bringing her family. I'd love for you to come by and meet them. You've meant so much to me, and I want them to know what a wonderful person you are." Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. Mrs. Brooks had become like family to him. Her belief in him had changed everything. He had always felt like an outsider, never quite fitting in anywhere. But with her, he had found a sense of belonging, a feeling of being valued. It was more than just the help she had given him. It was the way she had treated him like a person, not just a stranger. "I'd love that," Marcus replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for everything, Mrs. Brooks. I'll be there." The visit came, and Marcus found himself sitting at the kitchen table of Mrs. Brooks's cozy home, surrounded by her family. They were kind and welcoming, and as they talked, Marcus realized how much he had grown. He wasn't just the delivery man anymore. He was someone who had taken control of his life, someone who had a story to share, someone who had made a difference in his own life and in the lives of others. As the evening came to a close, Mrs. Brooks pulled Marcus aside. "You've come so far, Marcus," she said, her eyes filled with pride. "I always knew you had it in you. You're an inspiration to everyone around you." Marcus felt a tear slip down his cheek, but he smiled. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mrs. Brooks. You were the one who believed in me when no one else did. You changed my life." Mrs. Brooks hugged him tightly, and for a moment Marcus felt like the world had stopped. It wasn't just the job, the money, or the career that mattered. It was the relationships, the people who cared, and the impact he could have on others. As he drove home that night, Marcus thought about the long road he had traveled to get to this point. He remembered the days when he felt invisible, when he thought he was stuck in a life that would never change. But now he knew better. Life could change in an instant, and sometimes it only took one person to believe in you to set everything in motion. Marcus wasn't just a truck driver. He was someone who had overcome obstacles, someone who had learned the power of kindness, and someone who was determined to keep moving forward. And he knew that, no matter what, he would never stop paying it forward.